Welcome back and thanks for staying with Africa News Network, first fast live, and this is BizPulse. My name is Cindy Mabi. Now, bags of cash controversy hits Eskom. The bombshell was dropped at Matela Gogo's disciplinary hearing implicating some former and current Eskom officials and ANC Youth League President Colin Maine, among others. The allegations are contained in an affidavit by Ntokozo Dubazana, former Chief of Security at Makeda Protection Services, that provided security for former Eskom contract manager Franz Hlakudi. Copies of the affidavit were handed out by Gogo's legal representative to journalists at the hearing. Allegations in the affidavit suggest that Franz Hlakudi sent bags of cash to two senior Eskom executives, an ANC Youth League leader and a Sunday Times journalist. The allegations have been denied by most of the parties implicated. Let's take a look at the key protagonists in this new bags of cash controversy. Franz Hlakudi, former Eskom contracts manager, is accused of sending bags full of cash to several Eskom officials, the ANC Youth League president and a Sunday Times reporter. Eskom official Peter Sibola allegedly received a bag full of cash sent by Hlakudi near Woodmead Retail Park. And ANC Youth League president Colin Maina's bodyguard is accused of having received a bag full of cash sent by Hlakudi on the 3rd of November this year, and the Sunday Times reporter Mzilikazi wa Africa is accused of receiving a bag full of cash sent by Hlakudi in Sandton. And according to the affidavit, Eskom senior executive Abraham Masango was also sent 2 million rand by Hlakudi, which was allegedly delivered at his residence in Mooikloof.
Black First Land First is not surprised at all by these allegations. Eskom has been captured by white monopoly capital through a number of strategies, including direct buying of senior managers there. The affidavit, we must remember, is a sworn document which has legal standing. Those who are implicated, if they say this is not true, have the legal remedy to go to court, to have the court announce on these allegations. Mzilikazi wa Africa, it's not enough for him and Sunday Times to simply deny. They must go to court. They must open cases against this. It is shocking also, furthermore, to hear that Mzilikazi wa Africa and the Sunday Times claim that money was being offered and they denied this. Did they open criminal cases when corruption was being undertaken in their midst? They didn't. So we now know, the nation know now, that Sunday Times, its journalists, senior managers at Eskom are all bought by white monopoly capital to make sure that the looting of Eskom by white capital continues.
And Franz Hlakudi and Eskom official Peter Sibola have denied the allegations. The Sunday Times reporter has also issued a denial saying, and I quote, "I don't know the incident that this man is describing. I never met anyone at that place and I never gave my keys to anyone. It's a security risk and no one has ever given me a bribe. As a matter of fact, I refused a bag of money from Gogo himself in the middle of the night. Why would I accept a bag of money in the daylight?" End quote. And the key questions are whether the parliamentary inquiry will take note of the affidavit and summon all the accused, and should an independent investigation be ordered into the bags of money bribery claims. And joining us live in studio, Botsang Mwela and Tsepo Khadima, political analyst, and we're hoping to get ANC Youth League President Colin Maine on the line as well. Good evening to you. And what do you make out of this? I mean, you know, there's never a dull moment in South Africa, or in the media especially.
Well, I think first and foremost, yeah, as you said, every day, just things are shocking. But this is in the context of course, the inquiry or the disciplinary hearing against Mr. Matela Gogo, who we know a lot has been said about. But I think what is important is that we are talking about here, and there's an affidavit which has been deposed under oath. So there's one or two things that are going to happen. The police are they're going to be compelled, because an affidavit deposed under oath, it cannot just be left uninvestigated, because it's an affidavit under oath. If it is uninvestigated, to be proved or disproved, if it has got the effect, if it is not investigated, it's got the effect of leaving a permanent tarnishing of the characters of the persons that are referred to into that affidavit. But I probably see that the police are probably going to give a Section 204 immunity from prosecution so that they can be able to have people who will turn state witness. And we have seen this happen before. And actually Section 204, it is the most effective remedy. You know, there's a thing that there is no honor among thieves. And in order to catch the other thieves, you always need to have one that, unfortunately, you have to let go. So they're going to have to make up their minds as the police as to which one of the people that are implicated they are going to offer Section 204 immunity to ensure that they can get to the bottom of this. But I think what I found very interesting and intriguing is the utterances attributed to Mr. Mzilikazi wa Afrika, where he's now saying that why would he accept money during daylight if he had actually refused an inducement or a bribe from Mr. Machela Koko. So the question that must be asked of Mr. Mzilikazi wa Afrika is that the moment that he was offered a bribe and he says that he refused it, if we are to believe him, why has he not told us what he did after he refused the bribe? Because he is still a citizen of this country under the laws of this country, and there is nothing whatsoever that he can rely on to not have gone and reported that to the police. He cannot go and say, well, because I am a journalist, therefore I needed to. There was no source to protect. Why did he not go to the police? If we are to believe his allegation and not regard it as nothing but a preposterous diversion from what he himself has to answer to now in terms of this affidavit that has now been deposed by this former security guard. So I think it is not sufficient, even for his employers, the Sunday Times. They will not, based on this affidavit, it's going to make it exceedingly difficult for them to ever write any story that is to be believed, because the allegations remain persistent as to the various of their reporters who get paid to write stories, and this is not sufficient.
So the burden of proof, the burden of proof or proving your innocence would still lie with the implicated, because as you would know, if a rumor does the rounds enough times, it may even be construed as the truth.
Well, Cindy, that's exactly the point. Normally people would say you are innocent until proven guilty. I've got a different scenario or concept, is that you are guilty of allegations until you prove that you are innocent of those allegations. But the statement, you know, taking it from the last statement that Tata Khadima has just mentioned, taking it from the response of a very well-respected, very well-informed and seasoned journalist like Mzilikazi wa Afrika to stand up and say, I refused money at night, why will I accept it during the day? I mean, that's very vague, you know, or does it matter whether the money was provided at night or during the day? There was a corruptee and a corrupter, there was monies, allegations of monies being presented to him, and actually it is even more damning for Mzilikazi wa Afrika to stand up and say, somebody at Eskom had offered him money, Coco in this instance, before these allegations by the security, you know, official. So what did he do, as Tapo was saying? The Sunday Times itself, they're supposed to be squeaky clean, you know, corruption exposing media platform. Is silent about this whole thing. One of their key journalists, one of the senior journalists in the country working for them, has been approached. Let's treat it like that at the moment. There's allegations. He doesn't deny that he was approached before. He is saying he declined, he refused. But it was never in the front page of the Sunday Times that one of their senior journalists was approached with a bag of money at night. You know, it's even clear that it was at night, and they never wrote anything about it. And Tsapo is saying it is going to be very difficult for people to start believing what the Sunday Times write. I don't know if there are people today in this country who still believes what the Sunday Times write, when actually the Sunday Times itself has found itself, you know, tangled into this whole Eskom debacle. And now it has come out. I wouldn't say it's evidently, but it's an old statement. It's a binding statement. They must come and prove against it. But you know, Cindy, the challenge with allegations and oaths and statements of money changing hands with brown envelopes or black bags. It reminds me of the SACP and SATU issue. Unless there is material evidence in forms of video surveillances or other people coming to corroborate what has been said, it's going to be very difficult for someone to come and prove that it actually happened. But these are damning allegations. These are very serious. Characters are being attacked, as Tsepo have said, and it is up to those characters to come out loud and clear, put it in the on the public space, put it to that committee in Parliament that is dealing with Eskom issues. I've said 2 days ago, this whole Eskom debacle, it's said that it's focusing on few individuals who are like 4 and 5, while it involves over 10 companies, it involves over 200 people.
Do you think that that is the crux of it, Rekgadima, that whole controversy, conspiracy is a witch hunt, if you will, in what's going on at Eskom?
Well, I mean, let's look at the case of Mr. Koko, who is now on suspension and undergoing disciplinary proceedings as we speak. Now, very interesting is that in June this year, and I think the inquiry was finalized on the 14th or 17th of July, I would think, this year, that one of the big law firms in this country, Cliff Decker Hofmeyer, actually did do an investigation to the extent of the allegations that Mr. Koko was conflicted, that his stepdaughter was a director of a company that received a contract from Eskom, and that Mr. Koko was conflicted on the basis that as a senior official, he therefore had a role to play in the granting of that contract. Now, Cliff Decker Hofmeyer's report that was sent to Eskom actually disproved that, and that inquiry was done relying, or rather testing, the two sections of the sections of the Companies Act as well as the Public Finance Management Act, which is sections 75 and section 76 of the Companies Act of 2008, as well as section 50.3 of the Public Finance Management Act. But lo and behold is that after all that investigation, reliant on those three sections in the two pieces of legislation, the Cliff Decker Hofmeyer came to a conclusion that there was no evidence, then there were no facts whatsoever to support the allegation that Mr. Koko was conflicted and that he did not properly declare that conflict of interest to Eskom. So the question becomes, armed with that report from Cliff Decker Hofmeyer that has not been set aside or challenged by the Eskom who had initiated it, that armed with that, why would they still believe that somehow during this disciplinary proceedings they can be able to prove conflict of interest or that he had some role to play? And hence, I think that that gamble is now backfiring, because now he produces a affidavit from this former bodyguard to say, in fact, he is being vilified for having acted right, for having wanted to protect the interest of Eskom, and for having wanted to root out the actual wrongdoers. And what do we end up with now? We end up with this situation that is now just not gone, not just within Eskom, but it's gone outside of Eskom in terms of the Sunday Times and the ANC Youth League. And as I say, the whole thing is exploding in a very ugly way. But as for the Sunday Times, actually, you can't even feel sorry for them, because the history of the Sunday Times, and they never, by the way, challenged or went to court to set aside the book by Bob Aldworth, The Infernal Tower. And in fact, in the book, The Infernal Tower of Bob Aldworth, he goes to a great length to show historically and even in his own person how the Sunday Times was always used to tarnish the characters of people, to assassinate characters of people. I myself, I'm a victim of the Sunday Times. I have been to court based on what the falsehood that they reported about me. They have never once were able to come to court with any evidence. So I did do something. I just didn't sit back and say, well, Sunday Times is written about me. I went to court. And that case, when it is finalized, I can assure you that the Sunday Times is going to be found wanting by the court of law. So I took remedial action that was appropriate and is still appropriate at this time. And if anything, I've been vindicated because the Sunday Times has never been able to prove its allegations. And Butsang is quite correct. If indeed Zilikazi Africa was offered a bribe in the middle of the night, how come this was not, front page, but not apart from just it being front page. I'm saying that the journalist's consent, in this case, Ms. Ligazo Africa, was duty-bound under our laws to have gone to the law enforcement agencies. And failure to do so, if indeed what he's alleging is true, failure to do so, it in turn means that he himself now is implicit in criminality. And what he has said, I think, if anything, he has just made already his untenable position even more aggravated.
Would you say that the process is reckless in the sense that there had been an investigation on Mr. Gogo's part that vindicated him, or rather that didn't find any wrongdoing, that now with the hearing this affidavit pitches up and for some reason they treat it as gospel gold?
Well, Cindy, I don't think it's just a mere gossip and so forth. When you are being accused of a situation and there was a legal process, Tshepo explained in detail that there was a legal process, a law firm was appointed to look into all these allegations. Now, if the very same employer, Eskom in this case, ignores the findings as well as recommendations of a law firm they had appointed to conduct investigations, and that came with recommendations and conclusive remarks and so forth, they're ignoring it. They decide to go and embark on a process of internal disciplinary hearing. There's nothing wrong in embarking on a disciplinary hearing. However, you cannot ignore, the initial processes that you had embarked on. So, Marcela Gogo is sitting in his instance and bringing ACEs in. He's bringing issues and matters in through his legal representative that says, but they're ignoring the legal findings and recommendations, and therefore I will use whatever I have in my power to come and exonerate myself and clean my name. So I think, as I've said, the legal process or the disciplinary process, there's nothing wrong with it, but the way Eskom is handling this whole process and ignoring all other factors that are at hand, I think that's where the catch is. But we also have, we should remember, and the public should know that we also have what other people are declaring as a kangaroo court, which is the parliamentary process that is happening again regarding Eskom. Again, Cindy, running these two parallel processes where information emanates from both sides, that is crucial from cross sides, it's very difficult because there's information that will come out in Parliament that Marcela Gogo will use for his disciplinary hearing, or Eskom may be using, and vice versa. So it's a very clumsy, dirty process that actually the country or the politicians didn't apply their mind properly on how to handle the whole Eskom debacle. And I think, look, I must agree with the Black First, Land First, opinion to say, but when this whole thing started, when people are implicated, you don't sit until somebody comes with affidavits and you start issuing statements defending yourself. If there's allegations against you, you stand up and you apply corrective measures. You can go to the police, you can go to your principals, you can actually even issue a statement officially before somebody comes and corroborate what has been in the pipeline, before that. But for them to wait until the last minute, I'm very disappointed with Mzilikazi. The Sunday Times, I don't have much to say, but Eskom must clean its house. The board of Eskom, the leadership of Eskom, they have a lot to do. It
has become a very tedious exercise, but thanks so much to both of you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Tshepo Khadima and Botsang Mwilwa, political analyst, joining us in studio. And on to other news now, Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhweba